of stories.
Good morning. My name is Shaka. I'm a senior advisor at Alliance Fleuve Congo, AFC M23. And today, in the margin of the first session of the UN Human Rights Council, I am releasing this statement to the media. For 5 years, starting in December 2019, I worked with colleagues, lawyers from Belgium, the DRC, and many other countries to represent victims of mass crimes from Banyamulenge, Tutsi, and Bahema communities in the DRC. We traveled in different countries to listen to testimonies of victims and survivors. We collected hundreds of hours of testimonies on basis of which we filed legal complaints in the public prosecutor's office in the DRC and other jurisdictions such as Belgium and the International Criminal Court. To this day, no single case has ever been investigated by the DRC judicial authorities. Victim stories rarely make front page of newspapers. I remember a woman in her mid-70s from the Banyamulenge community in South Kivu, recounting how she was taken hostage by Wazalendo militia and forced to watch as they molested, tortured, and killed 2 of her daughters. A woman from Bahema who traveled from Ituri to Nairobi, where our team was taking testimonies. She survived killing in an attack in which she lost her arm, and she was forced to watch as 6 members of her family were being massacred. We interviewed several victims who fled their homes in Masisi territory, North Kivu province, telling chilling stories of violence and torture by government forces and allied militias such as Nyatura and FDLR. On more than one occasion, wounded individuals were refused care at hospitals in Goma simply because they were Tutsis. They were told to return to Rwanda for treatment. In South Kivu, the majority of Banyamulenge villages were destroyed by Mai Mai militia, aided by elements of the DRC and Burundian armies. The violence targeting them has caused thousands of deaths and displacement of most of the community, primarily to neighboring countries such as Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya, and Uganda. In Ituri province, Codeco militia has decimated entire Bahema villages and carried out countless attacks on IDP camps, causing thousands of deaths, injuries, and mass displacement of civilians. Credible reports have documented sexual violence committed by Codeco militia members and government soldiers, the burning of civilian dwellings, and killings involving the dismemberment of victim bodies. Unlike the crisis in North and South Kivu, the DRC government communicates very little about the violence in Ituri. This is because the situation in Ituri, far from the border between DRC and Rwanda, contradicts the government's narrative of blaming Rwanda for every ill in the DRC. The DRC government has advanced narratives aimed at misleading the international community and presenting itself solely as a victim. The claim that the DRC is at war because neighboring countries covet its mineral wealth is a constructed narrative designed to attract external sympathy. The reality is that violence in the DRC is fundamentally driven by politically engineered hatred and intolerance against certain ethnic groups, including the Tutsis and Hema. The government of President Tshisekedi has deliberately weaponized existing ethnic tensions and intensified campaign of violence and dehumanization, including through inflammatory hate speech by government officials and journalists targeting Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese, especially those perceived to be Tutsi, by associating them with Rwanda. Tshisekedi's government has trained, armed, and financed militia groups in eastern DRC, known for hateful and genocidal ideology. These groups were rebranded as Patriot, Wazalendo in Swahili, and unleashed against communities in eastern DRC. Alongside government forces, they committed crimes including murder, kidnapping, and destruction of civilian homes, churches, and schools. Tshisekedi has been sending Chinese-made drones far behind front lines in populated areas, causing multiple casualties of civilians and destructions of infrastructure. The media campaign led by Mr. Muyaya, the DRC Minister of Communication, is designed to obscure the truth and silence the voices of victims of the DRC government's actions. However, the truth ultimately prevails. President Tshisekedi bears primary responsibility for the violence and chaos in the DRC. He has prioritized consolidating power and enriching himself and his family at the expense of peace and well-being of Congolese citizens. While blaming others for the country's crisis, his family and associates have engaged in large-scale looting of state mining assets in Lualaba province, amounting to billions of dollars, which were reportedly laundered through banks and real estate in Western countries and the Middle East. Mr. Tshisekedi is not interested in ending war. He wants to keep it, since him and his friends have been benefiting massively from war-related expenditures, especially overbilling drones and weapon acquisitions. Discrimination and persecution in the DRC have persisted for generations. Fundamental rights such as the right to life, security, and the right to belonging to one's country have been denied to sections of population solely because of their ethnicity. In any country, such injustice inevitably breeds frustration. Many members of AFC M23 have families who have been living in refugee camps for over 30 years. Not only have they been unable to return to their homes due to persistent insecurity caused by militias such as FDLR and Nyatura, but the DRC government has also questioned the legitimacy of their citizenship. Many current members of AFC M23 forces previously served in the DRC army as respected officers. They left their military career in the National Army when they realized that the country they served turned against them, rejected them, and persecuted their family and relatives. AFC M23 is not the cause of the crisis and the violence in the DRC. It's the consequence of chronic governance failures and a deliberate pattern of treating certain segments of the population as second-class citizens, undeserving of equal rights. AFC M23 advocates for a country where the fundamental rights of all citizens are respected and protected, where discrimination on any ground is not tolerated. AFC M23 seeks the return of all Congolese refugees from neighboring countries, an environment where opportunities are equally accessible to all citizens. I would like to conclude with a few words regarding the UN Human Rights Council. Last year, the Council adopted 2 resolutions establishing a commission of inquiry to investigate alleged violation of international human rights and humanitarian law in the DRC. While AFC M23 supports all genuine efforts to deliver justice to victims and hold perpetrators accountable, we regret that the Commission of Inquiry in its current format falls short of those objectives. A reading of both resolutions, together with the report of the fact-finding mission presented to the Council last September, suggests that the Commission lacks credibility and impartiality. Its existence risks politicizing accountability rather than advancing justice and genuine peace efforts in the DRC. I will highlight 4 points. First, the resolution implies that the AFC M23 is the primary or sole perpetrator, while omitting other actors such as the National Army, FRDC, the FDLR, despite being mentioned in several reports, including by the United Nations. This approach undermines the principle of impartial investigation. Conclusions should follow evidence and not precede it. Second, certain allegations in the resolutions rely on inaccurate claims. For example, the preamble of Resolution A/HRC/RES/60/22 alleges the destruction of civilian infrastructure, including schools, hospitals, prison, and prosecutors' offices by AFC M23 members. These claims are untrue, and the responsibility for such destructions lie with the government forces. This is the case of prisoners in Goma and Bukavu, and schools and hospitals in Minembwe and Uvira, recently destroyed by government-supported militias. Third, the Commission's mandate is limited to North Kivu and South Kivu, reinforcing a political narrative that attributes instability solely to AFC M23 and Rwanda, while excluding provinces such as Ituri and Mai-Ndombe, where serious crimes against civilians have also been committed, as documented by UN agencies and human rights organizations. Restricting mandates in this way risk undermining comprehensive accountability. Finally, justice mechanisms perceived as biased do not heal societies. They risk deepening divisions. When resolutions repeat untrue accusations without addressing broader patterns of violence or examining all responsible actors, credibility is weakened, and accountability efforts may be viewed as politicized rather than impartial. AFC M23 remains committed to true and impartial justice for all victims, not politically motivated mechanisms designed to advance interests of certain powerful countries.
A world of stories.